Hello and welcome to this tutorial on creating a download animation using HTML and CSS. In this tutorial, we'll be creating a simple yet effective animation that simulates a download progress bar. You'll learn how to use HTML and CSS to create a visual representation of a file being downloaded, complete with a moving arrow that appears to be moving up and down. If you're a beginner, this tutorial will give you the skills you need to create your own download animations. So let's get started. First, let's take a look at the HTML structure we'll be working with. We have a div with a class of page, which contains a div with a class of folder. The folder div has a span element with a class of folder tab, as well as a div with a class of folder icon. The folder icon div contains two more div elements, one with a class of downloading and one with a class of bar. Now let's move on to the CSS. First, we have a universal selector that applies box sizing, border box to all elements on the page. This ensures that any padding or borders added to an element will be included in the element's total width and height. Next, we have styles for the HTML and body elements that set the margin and padding to 0, position them relative to the page, and set the width and height to 100%. We also set the background color of the body to a light blue color. The page div has a height of 100% and is set to display flex, with its items aligned and justified at the center. This will center the folder div within the page. The folder div has a white background color, a fixed width and height, and rounded corners on its right and bottom sides. It also has a relative position, which will be important for positioning the folder tab span element later on. The folder tab span element has an absolute position, which will allow us to position it within the folder div using coordinates. We set its height to 10 pixels, its left position to 0, and its bottom position to 100%. We also set its width to 40% and give it the same background color as its parent element. We use the after pseudo selector to create a triangle shape by adding a border to the bottom of the span. We also use absolute positioning to position the triangle so that it appears to be coming out of the bottom of the folder tab span. Next, we style the folder icon div by giving it padding on the top and setting its width and height to 100%. This will ensure that it takes up the full width and height of the folder div. The downloading div has a fixed width and height, as well as a margin set to 0 auto, which will center it within the folder icon div. It also has a relative position, which will be important for positioning the custom arrow span element later on. The custom arrow span element has a fixed width and height, as well as an absolute position. We set its stop and left positions to 50%, which will center it within its parent element, and use a negative margin to offset its position by half of its own width and height. This will allow us to position the arrow exactly at the center of the downloading div. We also give the custom arrow span a background color and add an animation using the keyframes rule. This animation will make the arrow appear to move up and down repeatedly, simulating a download progress bar. We use after pseudo selector to add a triangle shape to the custom arrow span element. The position, display, top, and left properties are used to position the triangle at the bottom of the custom arrow span, and the border property is used to create the triangle shape with a solid color. This creates the appearance of a download arrow pointing downwards. Finally, we style the bar div by giving it a fixed width and height, as well as a background color. We also set its margin to 0 auto, which will center it within the folder icon div. The keyframes rule has several different stages, each with a percentage value representing how far into the animation we are. At 0% and 100%, the arrow is at the top of the downloading div and has an opacity of 1. At 50% and 52%, the arrow has moved 110% from the top of the downloading div and has an opacity of 0. This creates the illusion that the arrow is moving up and disappearing behind the top of the downloading div. And that's it. With just a few lines of HTML and CSS, we've created a simple yet effective download animation. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. Thank you for watching.